Hello and welcome to the channel committed to helping people like you do what you can today so that you can do what you can't tomorrow. We're going to be focusing on nutrition in this video, talking about the three big things that people are always struggling with: weight loss, weight gain, and eating healthier. What should I be eating? What should I not be eating? If any of that is stuff you have struggled with, today you're going to hear from a certified sports nutrition specialist. So stay tuned. I promise this video is going to have something highly valuable for you. Okay guys, let's get started with the big one, and that is weight loss. Almost everyone at any point in time would happily snap their fingers if they could and take at least 5 pounds off so that they looked just a little bit better in a bathing suit. But that's not an option, and it doesn't matter if you want to lose 5 pounds, 50 pounds, or more than 100 pounds. The rule is the same for every single person. You have to consume fewer calories than you're burning so that your body is deprived of some energy that it needs and will tap into the stored energy that it is currently storing. Another way to phrase that is that you need to deprive yourself of some of the food that you were going to feed your body for energy so that it can eat the food that is already on it. Now, I'll be the first to say that 100 calories from a nice, well-balanced salad is going to be very different than 100 calories from a plate of French fries. You're going to feel sluggish and slow and not really going to want to be active after you're eating greasy food like French fries, versus a salad. It's probably going to make you feel more energetic and actually want to be more active, which is going to help you burn more calories and therefore in the long run probably lose more weight in the same amount of time as someone who's eating a lot of French fries, pizza, burgers, that kind of thing. So yes, the type of calories that you eat are going to affect your long-term success, but at a mathematical level, if you're depriving yourself of 3,500 calories on a weekly basis, whether you're eating a lot of salads or you are eating French fries, 3,500 calories is 3,500 calories, and that's 1 pound of fat lost per week. Now, if you've ever signed up for one of those free calorie tracking apps, which I definitely recommend giving a shot for at least 30 days, preferably 3 months, you'll probably see that they put you on a plan of either 1 pound per week or 2 pounds per week. That's a really sustainable and healthy pace to lose weight at, and it comes down to a mathematical formula of 500 calories a day approximately, or 1,000 calories per day that you're depriving yourself of. 500 calories per day adds up to 3,500 calories a week. That's 1 pound of fat loss per week. And obviously 1,000 calories per day is 7,000 calories a week, and therefore 2 pounds of fat lost on a weekly basis. Now, no, if you watch the scale every single day, every single week, you're not going to see a linear weight loss track of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2, 4, 6 pounds every single week. Your body fluctuates a lot of water on a daily basis, so the fluctuations that you see on a daily and weekly basis, that's water fluctuating. If you are following the formula, you're tracking your calories fairly, I recommend using a food scale, paying attention to a measuring cup if you're drinking things that have calories in them. If you're tracking your calories fairly, you are going to be on track to lose an average of 1 to 2 pounds per week. So I highly recommend really only setting up a monthly checkpoint to really make sure you're on track. I see this all the time with my clients. We'll go weeks without supposedly any progress, and then all of a sudden week 4 or week 5 won't necessarily be on the month mark, but after about 4 or 5 weeks, all of a sudden we will see, hey, we dropped about 4 or 5 pounds, or if we're on a more aggressive track, we lost 7 or 8 pounds. It'll all of a sudden appear out of nowhere, and it's totally normal and nothing to worry about. So do yourself a favor, if you've never tracked your calories before, sign up for something like MyFitnessPal or Lose It or another one. Try a few just to see what works best for you, and be fair with the amount of calories that you're tracking. Measure them as much as you can. You don't need to measure things like salt and pepper or spices that don't have calories. You don't really even need to measure your vegetables like salad, bell peppers, even carrots. Things that technically have some calories, but they're so few and those foods are so good for you that the calories that they do have, they're too good for you to count against you, is a way to phrase it. So eat as many fibrous, crunchy vegetables as you want to. Fruits, you want to make sure you're not going overboard with, but almost everyone could eat more fruit and it wouldn't harm their progress. What people tend to eat too much of is things that are really sweet or really fatty. So things like breakfast foods like donuts, muffins, things like that. Lunch foods like pizza, burgers, fries, and then same thing at dinner, eating really greasy, heavy things. Those are where the calories really start to pour in and hurt people's progress. So I do recommend tracking the calories in those foods if you can, but if you're not a calorie tracker and you just aren't willing to give it a try, something really easy that you can do that I won't say will guarantee that you're consuming fewer calories than you burn, but it should help, is to, if you ate 3 meals per day, cut one of those out and go down to 2 per day. And once that stops working, try going from 2 meals to 1 meal per day. It's very hard to overeat when you're eating fewer times per day. I'm a big fan of fasting. I really think going for long periods of time is great to teach your body how to, one, appreciate hunger, but two, also not feel hungry. The longer and longer you can go without food, the better you're gonna be at not feeling hungry. The less and less hungry you feel, the better your body's gonna be at burning the food that is already on it. So sometimes dieting is a battle of training your hormones more than it is training yourself to eat a certain way or not eat a certain way. It literally can come down to training your hunger hormones, your leptin and your ghrelin, into understanding that I'm not going to eat a third meal each day. So stop telling me that it's time for another meal, and that will happen. Years ago, when I first tried intermittent fasting, I had to train my body to not expect breakfast anymore. I pushed my breakfast from about 7 a.m. to 8, then to 9, then to 11, and it took a few weeks, but my body got really good at not telling me to be hungry at breakfast. It got used to only eating at lunch and dinner. And more recently, I've gone to trying to just eat 1 meal per day, and that's actually not been that bad of a transition. It takes time. It'll take a few weeks to get used to it, but you can literally train your body to eat fewer or more meals per day. For those of you who are trying to gain weight, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's something you can do to train your body to gain weight. So you can consume fewer calories by tracking the calories and making sure that you're making your meals, your portions smaller and coming out each day with a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit. You can cut a meal out per day, or on the output side, you can just increase how many calories you're burning without increasing how many calories you're consuming to create that same deficit. So if you're someone who only walks around the neighborhood, but let's say you walk for a mile, let's start turning that walk into a jog. You will probably burn maybe not 500 calories, but probably 300 to 500 calories just by turning that 1 mile walk into a 1 mile run. Speaking of the output side of things, when you are going into one of these calorie tracking apps and you are asked how active are you, I definitely recommend underestimating how active you are. I think the first mistake a lot of people make with their weight loss is they say they're more active than they are. So the formula spit to you that says this is probably how many calories you're burning, so let's consume this many. It's probably giving you too high of a number of how many you're burning because you said you're more active than you really are. So I definitely recommend, if not 1 activity level less, 2 activity levels less, therefore giving you the appropriate amount of calories per day that you should be eating in order to be on track. If you've ever been frustrated by your progress before, there's a good chance that's actually where the frustration came from, is you were eating the calories that it told you, but it told you the wrong amount of calories because it thought you were more active than you truly were. To give you a little bit of a reference as to what a moderate amount of activity is each week, it's basically 5 1-hour workouts per week. That's actually what should be moderately active. Someone who is very active is someone like an athlete training for a sport, and they're usually active for about 12 hours per week, training both in the weight room and on the field and training their endurance, but they're active for about 12 hours per week. So someone who is lightly active is the kind of person who just goes on a walk around the neighborhood each day. That's lightly active. So try to pick your activity level based on those things. Now, I want to keep this video short, so I'm not going to go into detail on all the different diets there are out there, but I will tell you that I don't think there's a bad diet out there for a short period of time. I don't like exclusion diets, but if you want to try keto, if you want to go vegan or vegetarian for a little while, I don't see any problem in that. I do think long-term people need to be eating a balance of all types of foods, whether it's both plant or animal, but I do think, especially in the Western world, most people need to drastically rethink how much meat they're eating on a regular basis and how few plants they're eating on a regular basis. So I will say, if you're interested in trying a diet, I think you should try it and give it at least 2 weeks, preferably an entire month, for your body to get used to it and see some progress, see how you like it. But if you're gonna commit to a diet, commit all the way. Don't say, I'm gonna go vegetarian, but you kind of have a little bit of meat every day or two, but just a little bit. Like, go full on, give it give it a full commitment. It's only a few weeks. So be honest with it, be honest with yourself, and give the diet a fair shot to see if it's something that you do really enjoy, but don't feel like you have to commit to that for the rest of your life. No one should be trying to lose weight for their entire life. So whatever diet you do want to try, just go all in for at least a few weeks and see how it really does with your body. Any diet is going to be an adjustment, so it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks of kind of rocky, wishy-washy progress, but after 2 weeks, you should have a really good idea of just what that diet can do for you and how you like it. Now let's talk about people who want to gain weight. Some of what I just said about weight loss might have already given you insight into what's going to help you gain weight. And the first thing I will say is you are going to want to be eating more. And I recommend bigger meals and more meal frequency. Some people will tell you, and rightly so, that it's not how much you eat, it's how much you absorb. So just because you are eating bigger meals doesn't necessarily always mean that you're actually absorbing more nutrients, or at least not enough to notice serious weight gains. So this is why I recommend eating more frequent meals, and this is exactly why bodybuilders eat about 7 or 8 meals per day. Your small intestine is only so big, and so trying to absorb a whole lot of food at once is really difficult, but if you put in smaller amounts of food steadily throughout the day, it's easier for your body to absorb that food and help go towards things like muscle growth. So if you're trying to gain weight, I recommend eating more meals per day. I would not get too hung up on how much protein you're eating, especially if you're going for one of those bodybuilding goals of like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or even I've seen 2 and 3 grams of protein per pound of body weight. That's just ridiculous. In the research that I've done, I've never seen a study that showed that anyone was ever able to absorb more than 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So while eating 1 gram might be more than your body can absorb, it's probably going to cost you a lot of money to be eating 30% more protein than you really need to be eating. And it's also just not really good for the planet for us to be farming all this extra protein that people don't even need. So I definitely recommend keeping your protein lighter than you think it is and worrying more so about the calories that you're eating rather than the protein itself. Just to make sure I'm not leaving you hanging, if you're wondering how many grams of protein should I be eating, I would say if you just got somewhere around 0.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight, you're doing just fine. Fun fact, marathon runners, distance athletes actually need more grams of protein per pound of body weight than strength athletes do. So keep that in mind when you see all this garbage going across the internet of how you need to shove protein down your mouth every single few hours of the day. That's just not the case, especially if you're not a competitive athlete like bodybuilder, powerlifter, or anything like that. So don't worry so much about the protein that you're eating. As long as you are getting protein at each meal, doesn't have to be animal protein, it can be plant protein, but as long as you're getting protein at each meal, you're eating more meals per day so that you have a better chance of absorbing all of that protein. And while I will say you don't need to have a calorie surplus to gain weight, it is a much better way to make sure that you are going to gain weight. For someone who's like 5 or 6% body fat, or in the case of a female, 13 to 15% body fat, you're already really lean, you don't want to put on any fat, you don't want to lose the definition on your abs. I get it. You can technically build some muscle by eating virtually maintenance calorie level by not eating a calorie surplus. You can steadily over the course of time add weight by tearing up your muscles a little bit during resistance training, repairing that damage by filling in those tears with new proteins so that the muscle is a little bit bigger, and therefore you're gaining weight over time because your muscle's larger, can hold more blood. But there's a really slow way to go. So I tell all of my clients, every single year you should be trying to actually gain some weight in the form of muscle during the winter time when no one's going to the pool, no one's wearing really revealing clothing. You can feel more comfortable by putting on 10 or 20 pounds. So I actually encourage all of my clients to consume a calorie surplus each year during the colder months because we don't have to feel as self-conscious about any weight that we put on. And it's really not that hard to lose the few pounds of fat that we might have added during that time when the spring and summer rolls around. Similar to the quotas that we have for weight loss, 500 to 1,000 calories, that's about what I recommend for people who are trying to gain weight. I might tell someone who's really self-conscious about gaining too much weight, or maybe they tend to put on fat a lot more easily than someone else. I might tell them that, hey, let's stick with a 250 calorie surplus instead of a 500 to 1,000, but usually 500 to 1,000 calories is a perfectly fine range for someone to consume on a daily basis in an effort to try to gain weight. 1,000 calories I would put on a teenage boy who's really trying to add a lot of weight and he struggles to put on weight. 500 calories would be for someone who is not really that skinny, but is trying to put on some weight, but they don't want to put on too much fat. And then 250 calories is obviously for that self-conscious person who might add fat really easily, struggle a little bit more to put on muscle. And so we want to be a little bit more careful with how much extra weight they gain in the form of fat over the course of those months. Now, lastly, let's talk about eating healthier. And I kind of touched on this already, but everyone should be consuming a balanced diet. I'm gonna go ahead and say 90% of the food that you're putting into your stomach should be plants, and only 10% of it should be animal products. But don't think that means I'm saying that 90% of your calories should come from plants. It's that animal products have so many more calories than plant food, that if you only eat about 10% of the volume of your food from animal products, you're probably going to get the right amount of calories, or a healthy amount of calories. I shouldn't say right, there's no right or wrong, but you're gonna get a good amount of calories from plants and animal product. Now, with my strength and conditioning background and even my CrossFit background, which uses the same recommendation for nutrition, someone who is very active and especially involved in strength training like a CrossFit athlete or virtually any kind of competitive athlete, you should be consuming a ratio of about 30% protein, 40% carbohydrates, and 30% fat. That's just kind of the safe average that people should be trying to consume on a regular basis, so that they make sure they're getting enough protein to repair any damage that they're doing to their body. They're getting enough carbohydrates so that they have the energy that they need to perform higher intensity movements, and they're also getting a healthy amount of fats. All of those nutrients your body needs, and they need them regularly. But since this channel is for normal people who are not training specifically for any kind of sport, and they're probably not doing 7 days a week of CrossFit or something like that, you don't need 30% of your calories coming from protein, or necessarily only 40% of your calories coming from carbs. You can actually increase the amount of carb calories you're getting to about 60% probably, and take your calories from protein down to about 10% and be absolutely fine. I'm not gonna get too into all the different percentage options that are considered healthy out there for you. I advise you to play around with them, commit to the diet for at least a few weeks, try a specific number for 3 to 4 weeks and see how you like it, and then try it up if it's not something that you want to stick with. But in the world of nutrition, there's really no right and wrong answers. It's really what's right for you at this time in your life, for what you want to do and how you're feeling. And you should be able to have the freedom and flexibility to change that at any point in time when you decide it's best for you to try something new. If you want to truly eat better and truly feel healthier by eating food that is going to make your health better, the simple and I think most effective thing anyone can do is to add more plants to their diet. So at breakfast, stick a salad in there, or make a bowl of oats instead of a pan of hash browns. Put some freshly chopped fruit on top of that oats and make yourself a nice balanced bowl of oatmeal instead of using the processed Quaker stuff that comes with a bunch of sugar added into it. You want the foods that you're eating to look as similar to what they look like as they were harvested as possible. So just to give you an example, I would encourage you to eat an actual mango or an actual apple rather than a bag of dehydrated mangoes or apples, mostly because they've had a bunch of sugar added to them if they're in a bag. Probably have also had some salt added, but even if neither of those things are true, they don't have the water that they had when they were actual fresh apples or mangoes. This is why eating actual fruit is so good, because it has a bunch of water, has a bunch of fiber, the vitamins and minerals that are inside are as fresh and intact as possible, and over time, as those dry out or they get cooked, those nutrients inside start to degrade. So the fresher your food is, the higher the quality of nutrients you're gonna get that are in that food. There's nothing wrong with cooking down your spinach. I know it's really hard to eat a big bowl of spinach, and when you cook it down, it condenses to like this tiny little tablespoon almost. There's nothing really wrong with cooking it, but the less you can do to the food before you eat it, the better. This is why it's better to eat something like brown rice over white rice, because the brown rice still has that outer shell on it that gives a little bit more fiber, slows down the digestion, and gives your body a steadier supply of energy rather than the white rice, which isn't a bad thing by itself, but I'm just using this as an example. But you eat the white rice, it absorbs a lot faster, gives your body a higher amount of energy at once, And if you're not using that energy immediately, there's a chance that that energy might get stored as fat because your body got this big burst of energy and didn't need it at the time, wasn't burning it, so it stored it as fat. And to continue with that example, rice flour would be an even faster digesting and absorbing form of rice that would give you an even higher burst of energy. Suddenly a bunch of starch and therefore glucose coming into the body, entering the bloodstream, and the body saying, oh man, here's all this energy that we have. Are we in the middle of activity that's using this? No. Then we should store all this extra energy that we have in the form of fat. Hopefully with that example, you can see that the more processed a food gets, the more that's done to it before it actually goes in your body, the less beneficial it's going to be, and possibly you could say the worse it is for you. That being said, there's nothing wrong with eating brown rice, white rice, or rice flour. It's just a matter of what sets you up for the best progress on your fitness goals. I think virtually everything can be considered healthy in moderation. The problem is that most people define moderation a little bit too leniently, but that's a topic for another time. If there was one thing you took away from that whole thing about eating healthier, I hope that it is to eat more plants in their true form or as close to their original form as possible, and eat less meat, especially if it's fried, greasy, fatty, that kind of thing. Again, I won't say there's anything wrong with eating a steak, eating a burger from time to time, eating pizza, but the more often you eat that kind of thing, the more it's going to weigh you down. Maybe that's actually a really good way to think about it. The lighter the food is that you eat, like a salad, the lighter you're gonna feel and the more energetic you're gonna feel. The heavier and more dense a food is, the heavier and more dense you are probably going to feel. If any of that was confusing, or you want to hear something more in depth about one particular topic I mentioned, several topics, or maybe something I failed to mention, let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to make more videos that cater specifically to something you're interested in, but I won't know if you don't tell me. So put it in the comments below and I'll make a video as soon as I can about that specific topic or question. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot. I would appreciate a like if you thought this video was valuable, a comment if you have a suggestion on what could be valuable content for you in the future. Subscribe if you like getting factual information from a professional that will help you in your health and fitness. And as always, remember to be doing what you can today so that you can do what you can't tomorrow.